I was diagnosed with ADHD about 15 years ago. I was in my mid-30s. And for most of these 15 years, I didn't really talk about it with other people, except for immediate family. And in this video, I would like to talk a little bit about why I chose to hide it for so long, and also why I now feel more comfortable speaking about it. I have the inattentive presentation of ADHD, sometimes called ADD, which means that I mostly struggle with regulation of focus and attention, executive function, emotional regulation, and timekeeping and organizing tasks and so on. And it's quite common for people with this presentation to be diagnosed later in life because all of the symptoms are internalized. They're not visible on the outside in the same way that the symptoms of hyperactivity and impulsivity. But I always had this feeling before my diagnosis that I was somehow different from other people. Like in school, I didn't really fit in most social groups. I had very few friends. I had a few very good friends, but very few. Always felt like I was on the outside in most settings. And I also struggled with this constant feeling of underperforming. Like in school, and later when I started working, I always did okay in school and at work, but not great. So I always felt like I had this feeling that I could do better always. So I was also always kind of frustrated that I felt like I had many good ideas, and I studied hard, and I thought that I should do better all the time. And this caused a constant friction, internal friction for me. And in my 20s and so on, it also led to a lot of issues with anxiety and depression. And I always felt like it was something was wrong, but I couldn't really pinpoint it. And when I finally was diagnosed at around 35 years old, I met this doctor who started to revise many of my previous contacts with healthcare. I had been diagnosed with different sorts of anxiety and depression by different doctors. I had gone through different types of treatments, medicine, therapy, and so on. And nothing really worked long term. Some other treatments worked for a short time, but not long term. And this doctor sort of questioned all of the diagnoses that I had received previously, and started asking questions about attention and focus and these things, and finally said that I should do the test for ADHD. And this was very surprising for me because I had a lot of prejudice about ADHD. I thought it was only about hyperactivity and impulsivity, because that's the visible part of ADHD, the visible kind of presentation, and also kind of the stereotype that most people have if you don't know a lot about ADHD. So I did the test and I scored really high on this test. So he decided, or we decided, that I should do the more profound evaluation. And during this evaluation, I learned about ADHD, and suddenly everything clicked. It was like an eye opener, and all the things that I had been feeling or thinking or doing suddenly started to make sense. And I got the diagnosis, and it was with a lot of mixed feelings, because first it was a relief, because I had been feeling all of these things, this frustration with always feeling that I was underperforming and not reaching the goals that I wanted to reach, and so on. And now suddenly I had a logical explanation, and also a bit of the feeling that it wasn't really my fault, maybe, because previously I had been very hard on myself, like judging myself for underperforming. And now suddenly I had like an explanation that I had been trying to fit into a mold of a neurotypical person, while my brain was wired differently, and I needed other strategies to perform and to reach my potential. So this was a huge relief, but it also came with some grief and anger, because I was 35. I had suffered for 35 years with this anxiety and depression and constant feeling of underperforming. So I was a bit angry that it took so long and so many contacts with different doctors and different persons before this was discovered. And I think also this is quite common for people who are diagnosed with later in life. That you have this sense of grief, like what could have been if somebody had discovered this sooner, or and so on. So after I got the diagnosis, I started to learn about the strategies, the methods that work for a person with ADHD, and I got better. I had the symptoms of depression and anxiety was lower. I started to perform better because I could adapt more easily to the demands at work, and to do the things my way instead of trying to do it the normal way. But it wasn't like day and night. It wasn't like a sudden quick fix of everything. It was a long and quite difficult struggle to change, because I've been trying so long to fit in and to do things the way people told me they should be done, like in the neurotypical way. And this feeling of, or perceived necessity of fitting in, stayed with me, of course, because it was something I trained to do all my life. And it's not like I get the diagnosis like a magic pill and suddenly everything is different. Still, it took a lot of work to change my perspective on things and on how to do things. But I think one of the main benefits of the diagnosis was that I started to be more kind to myself, less judgmental, and over time I grew this acceptance that I was having certain kind of problems because of my ADHD, and there were concrete strategies to change this. That it wasn't really my fault that I was underperforming. But I still was very hesitant to tell people. And this was, I think, mostly because I didn't want to be labeled, like I didn't want to be judged by other people's prejudice, because I knew all the prejudice that I had before my diagnosis. And when this doctor told me I should be evaluated for ADHD, and I didn't want other people to have that reaction that I had against me, So I tried to sort of adapt my way of doing things in silence, behind the scenes, so to speak, and still do my job and perform well without people knowing the secret struggle behind the scenes. And this was the case for maybe 10 years. About 5 years, 3 to 5 years ago, I started to be more open. I still didn't feel like I wanted to declare that I had ADHD to everybody, but if somebody asked me, then I wouldn't hide it. It So it was a step-by-step process to go from not knowing to accepting, and then another process to finally be okay with it to a degree where I could start sharing it with others. And I think now, partly because of age, partly because my confidence has grown a lot since I got the diagnosis, since I stopped judging myself so harshly for not performing and so on, and start learning about ADHD and the way it affects me. It's still a struggle, you know. I still make mistakes while losing track of time or forgetting some tasks if I haven't written it down, and I still make these, and I still beat myself up about it sometimes. But over the years, I've grown to accept that this is me, and this is the case for many others like me, and it's not like the ADHD brain is better or worse than a neurotypical brain. It's just different, and all of society is basically built on the neurotypical way of doing things, and we as people with ADHD need to find our own strategies to work in this society, and it's not our fault. It's a neurological condition. It's not a chemical imbalance. It's not emotion based. It's an actual physical difference in the structure of our brains, and it's nothing new. It always existed, and there have always been people who are different and do things their own way, and many great people, like great inventors and company leaders and artists and so on, have ADHD and are performing at a very high level in their field. So it's not like we are. I don't like to see it as a disorder or as disability. I just grown to accept it as being different, and being different is not better or worse. It's a matter of knowing yourself and learning strategies to cope with the things that are harder because I have ADHD, and also finding ways to benefit from the things that are easier for me because I have ADHD. Like, there are things in my work that actually are easier for me than for some of my colleagues because I have ADHD and they don't. There are benefits, and there are a lot of things that are the other way around, and it's just a matter of finding what works for me and being okay with it. So and I think that's why I now am more comfortable speaking about it, telling people I have ADHD, and also I'm better now at explaining what it means. When I was recently diagnosed, and for the first years I didn't want to spend a lot of energy explaining to people what it meant and sort of counterweight their prejudice and so on, because I was still new at it myself, but now I know more. I know myself better, and therefore it's not a problem. Now I can joke about it and just, you know, it's the way it is. It's not going to change. It's something you're born with, and it's something that it's going to be a part of my life, all my life, no matter what. So it's just, it has been a process, but it's also just a matter of accepting and learning how to use it to my advantage. My name is Johan, and I would like to hear your perspective on this topic. Do you share information about your diagnosis, or do you keep it to yourself? I don't think there's a right and wrong answer in this topic, but it would be nice to hear your perspective. If this video has given you any value, please press that like button and subscribe to my channel to hear more. Thank you.